it definitely takes more work and more effort to mentor someone and maybe let them fail or fall to for their personal growth, as opposed to just taking over and doing everything yourself, and they're just and them just
Oh
being
yeah,
there.
yeah. I wanted to point out on this point, um, at the very end of Second Timothy, who does Paul ask for when he says Luke is the only one here with me? Demas has just straight up left the ministry because of the world. He's deserted me. And then there's other people. They've gone and they're ministering in other places. They've left Paul. He's all alone, except Luke is there with him. And then he says, verse 11 of 2 Timothy 4, pick up Mark. Bring him with you, for he is useful to me for service. So, when do you think Paul was like kicking himself? I think it was probably before this. But like he certainly probably had some moment where he was kicking himself over what happened with Mark,
Mm-hmm.
because Barnabas took the time and made the effort. You know, whenever they split up, Paul saw John Mark and thought he's not going to be useful for me for ministry, because he's done this with us and he gave up, and he went on and he's not going to be useful for me. He's just going to get in the way. He's going to
Mm-hmm.
cause delays. He's going to cause problems. But Barnabas took him, and I think that's something about the mentoring that we need to remember too. You can't expect the person you're mentoring to be perfect. Why? Because you're mentoring them. Like you're
Yes.
you're leading them. You're helping them to grow, and that's the goal. That's the point, right? So Barnabas took the time and the effort. He took him back on another missionary journey. So John Mark was gaining experience, and we don't follow that book of Acts doesn't follow Barnabas and John Mark. It follows Paul, right? But if we had heard all of the stories and all the things that they went through, we would see that John Mark was growing. Why do we know this? Because Paul says here that he's useful for me for ministry. There was some following that he did by Barnabas the encourager. He was being led, he was being mentored, he was, the time and the effort was made, and it did pay off in the end, because you know, he proved himself at that point, later on, that he was useful for ministry. He was somebody that, he had a rough start, but he had somebody that wouldn't give up on him. Um, and and that's the kind of folks that we need to reach out to. Is they may not be perfect, and they shouldn't be perfect, because if you're trying to find the perfect person to mentor, then maybe they should mentor you because you're not perfect,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So like, take these individuals and help them to grow, and take the effort and the time, and be willing even to make sacrifices and be patient, and you know realize that. And this is something I've been reading some books on parenting.
Okay.
But realize that they have a different perspective than you do. You know, especially young people, they think they know it all, right? The
Mm-hmm.
teenagers, and they think they've living their life, and high school is the most important time of your life.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing better than this, and this is the most. This is I'm independent and I'm responsible, and I'm an adult now, and it's like, if you only knew, kid. But
Yeah.
but understanding their perspective on it, and being patient with that, be willing to work with them even when they're hard-headed and stubborn, and you know don't be like Paul all the time. Be like Barnabas
Yeah.
sometimes.
Don't be like no.
There's a point. Paul had a point. And that we're True, we're doing this, and the ministry needs to be effective. But if we do that every time, we won't have anybody to mentor.